If I can ask everyone to take your seats. Like, I did give a 2-minute warning for everybody to get a chance to have coffee or bagel. However, I must announce you are not permitted to have food or drink in the room.
What?
It's what I was told. This is your county. Senator Garcia says that he is invoking executive privilege, and we can have drinks as long as they have caps on them. And in Dade County, I am not going to argue with Senator Garcia. Ergo, thank everybody for coming here today. Wasn't that a great meeting we had, joint meeting? Okay. I've had a lot of people saying we should discuss insurance more, and we can discuss doing that, just not today because I'm insurance out right now. But if anybody has any questions, I am a subject matter expert in the area. Please call me and we'll discuss this further. I'll be happy to answer any questions from any member of the SFRPC. It is approximately exactly 10:42. We've started a couple of minutes late. I normally give 5 minutes, but that's where direct adjacent surface parking. So I gave 12 minutes here.
Everybody had terrible driving here.
Yes.
Everybody.
And it was all because of Miami Beach. Heading over, they're down to one lane. That was as I drove by, I watched.
The one to the port.
Yeah, the one to the port is now down to one lane. Senator Garcia, your district, would you care, or your county, would you care to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Please face the flag, repeat after me. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Who is calling the roll? Is it Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy, are you here? Yeah, there she is. Kathy, will you please call the roll?
Here.
Here.
I think you said Horland, I'm here. We can't hear Kathy.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
Yes.
I'll go backwards. Kate's,
Here.
Burr,
Here.
Gilbert, Goldberg, Kaufman,
Here.
Lincoln. Here. McGee,
Here.
Ross, Udine,
Here.
Davila, Walia, Wynn,
Here.
Villaboy.
Here.
Thank you.
Sorry, Walia is here.
Thank you.
Do we have a quorum? We do. Okay, we do have a quorum. I would like to recognize former Chair Bailey being here today. Thank you, former Chair. We will have greetings from two people, Senator Garcia and Eileen, is it Boucle? Okay, first Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just want to welcome everyone to Miami-Dade County. It's really nice to have you all here. And Mr. Chairman, honestly, I do want to congratulate you and the team because there was an amazing insurance meeting, joint meeting discussing insurance on Friday, I think it was, right? Friday.
Yes, sir.
And it was very insightful, and I appreciate the robust conversation that was had, and honestly, and the integrity was of the panelists. So I appreciate that, and it's an issue that it really affects the four counties, not the whole state, but really down here especially. So thank you very much for that, and I look forward to having a great meeting here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. That was a good meeting, and
All the best.
based on the follow-up we've had, we'll try and pursue it further. Ms. Buckley, the Executive Director of Miami-Dade TPO.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization, I wish to welcome you to our chambers today. It is always a pleasure to collaborate and coordinate with the South Florida Regional Planning Council, most particularly your Executive Director, Isabel, who is an outstanding partner to us in the region. And Mr. Chairman, I am a former ex officio board member here, so it is always a pleasure. I've presented before the board in the past, and if ever we can be a resource or, participate in any way, we are always here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Greg Ross is here. I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute before.
Second.
Moved by Chair Bailey, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Show it adopted unanimously. I don't see the minutes, but we have here minutes from the South Florida Regional Planning Council meeting of February 26th. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing no additions or corrections, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Councilmember Lincoln, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Show the minutes adopted. It is my understanding that we have two presentations, time certain at 11, so we will start those at 11.
It's 11:15.
I'm sorry?
It's 11:15. Oh, it says 11.
It says
All right,
11.
well, it's 11:15.
Okay.
So,
Well, my understanding is we will not be, Mr. Tart is not here, and we will not be getting we will skip the financial reports. They will be approved at our next meeting. It is now in order to proceed with the local government, the local government comprehensive plan amendment reviews. First, we'll start with the proposed ones. I will ask our acting SFRPC attorney, Mr. Schwartz, to please read the four proposed comp plan amendment reviews.
Thank you. City of Dania Beach, 24-01 ESR, Town of Davie, 24-01 ESR, City of Hialeah Gardens, 24-01 ESR, Village of Virginia Gardens, 24-01 ER.
You've heard the four proposed comp plan amendments. I hereby declare the public hearing open. Are there any members present in person first that wish to testify in any of these? Seeing none. Kathy, is there anyone online that wishes to testify in any of these? No. Seeing nobody present or in person or online, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion for approval? Moved by Councilmember Bailey, seconded by Senator Garcia. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Show them adopted unanimously. Please read the one public hearing on the adopted.
Broward County, 23-04 ESR.
Hereby declare the public hearing on the adopted comp plan amendments open. Is there anybody present in person that wishes to testify in this item? No. See, Kathy, is there anybody present online that wishes to testify on this item? No. Seeing nobody present in person or online, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Bailey, seconded by Councilmember Ross. That was you, Greg, right?
Yes, it was.
Recognize your voice anywhere. Right, is there any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. This is adopted unanimously. We're not quite ready for public hearings. Ms. Cosabel, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
Ms. Cosio Carballo, do you have any introductions that you wish to make?
Thank you, Chair Geller. So, first I want to say how grateful I am to Miami-Dade County staff and, starting, I have received tremendous support organizing this meeting, starting with Eileen, who's hosting us yet again, because, said come back anytime. I'm like, we're going. So, but anyway, I had great support from Mayor Living Cava, who sends her regrets that she cannot be here. She's in Washington DC today. Also, COO Jimmy Morales was fantastic.
Mayor Levine Cava was my predecessor the first time I was chair, partial term of the South Florida Regional Planning Council. So Mayor Levine Cava knows the value of the SFRPC as a former chair.
Right. And so, you know, I really wanted to focus on all the important things that are going on in Miami-Dade County for our meeting. And all the staff stood up. So I just want to say that among our guests that we're going to have today are Alex Steinbach, who is with the Planning Development Manager with County RER, the Regulatory and Economic Resources Department. We're also really fortunate to have Charles LaPrade here, who is he's a gem. He's the agricultural manager for Miami-Dade County, also working hard. And my new best friend, Pete Gomez, who I just met last week, he and his staff have really gone all in to try to help us today. So Mr. Gomez is the director of the Miami-Dade County Department of Emergency Management. And he's here with Dr. Spiro, who is the assistant director of the Miami-Dade County DEM. We're also very fortunate to have Marina Michael Pop with us. She is with DERM, the Department of Environmental Resources Management. And she's going to be giving us a few comments on what they're doing at DERM, but also remember our letter that we sent about funding the flood control salinity structures in Miami-Dade so that we can get them moving. So she's here specifically to come and talk to us about that and other things. And of course, I want to also recognize James Murley, who is here with us today. So James.
Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, so James is now the Senior Resilience Advisor to the Mayor. And reminded me last week that 50 years ago, when he had left Vietnam, he was done with Vietnam, he came to the Regional Planning Council to start working as a regional planner. So the first time, that's right, the first time. So with that, I don't believe I've missed any of our guests, but if I have, forgive me and please introduce yourself. But we're just really excited to be here.
Thank you.
And if you want.
And I'm going to segue in, because we can't start for 7 minutes. So I'm going to segue into the executive director's report.
That's fine.
And we will be beginning promptly at 11, but in line with our rules, we can't start before then.
And I do have the bios. I'm not sure, Kathy, what happened to the bios that y'all prepared, but I didn't see them in this package. I don't know if they're in a separate place, but if not, I'll give you my computer and I can introduce them, or you can do that as well. So the executive director's report is actually pretty light today, in that we've been meeting like every 5 minutes. So, so there's not a whole bunch that's new.
We had a press conference on Thursday on insurance. Randy DeShazo, the deputy director and director of research and economic development. Do I finally have that? No, still close, but okay. Prepared working with me a fiscal analysis on insurance, which was distributed. So press conference Thursday, joint SFR/TC/RPC meeting on Friday, and this meeting today. Staff hasn't slept in a week.
Repeat that again.
Yes, staff hasn't slept in a week.
No, but I do want to give an important update. As you know, we're having the South Florida Regional Planning Council. We're shooting for May 31st for our regional conference. And the subject of, thank you, Senator. My apologies. So the subject of that meeting is going to be the intersection of mental health and housing and continuum of care. Senator Garcia is our lead on that. His chief of staff, Idaida, is the lead on that. And so I just want to let you know that we've been working with them, and I have Randy here. He's sort of spearheading part of the agenda development for us as well. But we've been working with the partners. We think we're making good progress. And I will be catching up with the Senator Idaida also to speak a little bit more about that. Randy, I don't know if you want to add anything to where we are right now.
No, just to add a couple more details. So what we're hoping to do with this is to bring policymakers and professionals together across South Florida to help bring more additional focus to the needs of people with mental health struggles and focusing on the issues of housing and providing a continuum of care, bring policymakers and those professionals together to help think through a policy agenda for how we might better support them in the future through finance and through policy making.
And besides being an all-around good guy, Senator Garcia is a absolute noted statewide expert in these areas. Feels personally about them, but chaired the committee in the Senate, has spent a great deal of time on these. And so I've asked Senator Garcia to spearhead this. Thank you, Senator.
With that, I think we can move to legal counsel report.
Okay, no, actually we can't because Councilmember Lincoln.
Oh, well, that's.
Great.
So much. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that you made the U.S. Florida Keys radio news this morning. You're talking.
Yes, that's what I was hoping for.
Streaming it while I was getting ready this morning in my hotel here in Miami, and I was listening to our Florida Keys news, and they were talking about the bill that you are proposing Congress for the insurance. So I was thrilled that our local
Thank you, Councilmember. And I have to say, and I've said this before, you absolutely win the prize here because you come further than anybody else, like way further than anybody else, and are always here at our meetings. And
So
we need to thank you for that.
Open your present. I brought her the council member who drives the most award gift.
oh, it's dark chocolate.
I know it's your favorite
It
to,
is.
Yes,
to accompany you on your drive home.
Thank you.
right. I believe we have a continuing contract with Harry and David's because that's normally where the dark chocolate comes
That's
from.
right.
Okay,
And I need to order more.
right. We have approximately 2 minutes, so let me turn it over to legal
I'll
counsel.
make it quick. Nothing new to report.
Well, that didn't quite take enough time. Maybe I know a good joke. All right, so, well, I'll just,
You can start with the
guess,
introductions. How's that?
let me give the chair, yes. 11.
Or we're gonna move it back to 11 because
That's what it says. So, all right, we have 2 minutes before we start. So let me just say on the staff has been extremely busy and we appreciate that. Again, what we're doing now, which is differed from, I'd say we've made a change over the last 3 or 4 years. What we're trying to do now is hold 2 joint meetings a year between us and the TCRPC. And these joint meetings now are themed, at least one of them per year is. So we have the theme, last year was water, this year was insurance, but we deal with other matters. In addition to that, once a year, we're having a major joint SFRPC, TCRPC conference, where 2 years ago was up in Palm Beach. That was on what we're going to do on solid waste. Last year was on recycling. We haven't yet picked the topic for next year. In addition to that, once a year, we're having a major SFRPC conference. I think last year was last mile, or was that 2 years ago? First and last mile. And this year is mental health. The SFRPC is becoming strongly relevant here, and plus the SEDS, of course, is becoming strongly relevant, and I'm quite confident, and that's what I want to talk to you about, that Councilmember Lincoln will be continuing this. We are actually getting well known and extremely relevant here in the Tri-County Monroe-Dade Broward area. It's finally 11 o'clock.
I don't
So-
think we did our financial. report.
No, we said we were postponing them because Mr. Tart isn't
Well,
here.
Mr. Todd doesn't do the financial
Oh.
report, so we'll do that afterwards. Leo
Okay.
does the financial report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry.
My bad. In that it is now the time of 11 o'clock, having now arrived, we can proceed with our presentations. So, presentation number 1, the evaluation of agricultural land use trends. By the way, I know you won't believe it, but I actually served as chair of the Senate Agriculture Committee, Ag and Consumer Services. Evaluation of agricultural land use trends and outlook in Miami-Dade County, Florida study, and that will be presented by Alex Dombach, AICP Planning Development Manager, Planning Division, Miami-Dade County Regulatory and Economic Resources Department, and Charles LaPrade, Agricultural Manager, Miami-Dade County Regulatory and Economic Resources Department. And Isabel Cosio Carballo, our Executive Director, will introduce them.
Thank you again, council members, and again, welcome Alex and Charles. So Alex Dombach, AICP, is the Planning Development Manager with Miami-Dade County's Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources. Alex manages non-routine projects that update and implement the Comprehensive Development Master Plan, and he advises the administration, the Board of County Commissioners on planning and development related policy decisions. Previously, he was the planning supervisor for the city of Oakland Park, Florida, where he oversaw the planning and zoning division and conducted several major projects, including large housing development plans, revised downtown development policies, and updated regulations for signage and infill development. Early in his career, Alex led planning and zoning departments for urban cities in Washington, D.C., Chicago, and New York City metropolitan areas. And as you might imagine, he has a lot more. He's very proud of his accomplishments, which include award-winning plans for New York's downtown district, redevelopment policies, urban design standards for small lot infill development in older, dense urban neighborhoods. So it's very practical experience for South Florida. And he has personal experience in the construction industry and has renovated a few older buildings. He has a master's degree in city and regional planning from Ohio State University. Alex is going to be providing the main presentation, and then we are joined with Charles LaPrade. He's again the agricultural manager for the Miami-Dade County Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources. I have known Charles my entire life that I've been at the Regional Planning Council since '96. He's always the first person I call if I have a question about ag anywhere. So Mr. LaPrade was born in Homestead, Florida, to pioneer families whose roots date back to the 1800s in Miami-Dade County. He has worked at all levels of agriculture, including growing, sales, marketing, and shipping tropical fruits, vegetables, and foliage plants. In May of 2005, Mr. LaPrade was appointed as the first agricultural manager for Miami-Dade County, a position he still holds. In this position, he acts as an advocate for Miami-Dade County's agricultural interests and serves as a single point of contact between the agricultural industry and Miami-Dade County. Prior to this appointment, Mr. LaPrade was employed at the city of Homestead as a communication marketing manager, and in 2003 became the planning, economic development, and administrator for the city. He has also held positions as vice president and general manager of Kendall Foods Corporation and marketing and communications director at the South Florida Growers Association and Coral Reef Nursery. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of Central Florida and an Associate's Arts from Miami-Dade Community College. He still resides in Homestead with his wife, Cynthia, son Charles, John, and daughter, Carly Jeanette. And so with that, I think we're ready for Mr. Dombach.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting me, and I am very honored and excited to be able to give this presentation. I have to apologize that I am attending virtually. I tested positive for the flu this weekend, and therefore I thought it might be better for all people that I not be present and not be breathing or coughing on anyone. So that's why I'm only here by screen.
For not
Today,
being.
sorry.
Thank you for not being here.
No problem. Thank you. So this is the report highlights on the evaluation of agricultural land trends in the outlook for Miami-Dade County, Florida. And this was a study that really was initiated as a result. There you go. It resulted directly from a resolution initiated by the Board of County Commissioners in 2022. The project took about a year to complete, a little more than a year, and we completed it in October 2023, and then the Board of County Commissioners adopted it soon thereafter in November. What we did was work directly with the University of Florida's Agricultural Extensions Institute, IFAS, Institute for Agricultural and Food Economics, as well as other divisions of the university. Project. What we really were looking for is to pay attention to how agriculture works with the county and its future. First of all, the county's comprehensive development master plan has policies that support and have long supported agriculture as a viable economic use of lands. I'm calling attention to one of our policies. I also noticed that in the policy statements from SFRPC, there's some strong language regarding the importance, supporting the importance of agriculture in the state and in the county and in the region. And so in Miami-Dade County's comprehensive plan, we do state that we shall take steps to reserve the amount of land necessary to maintain an economically viable agriculture industry. So the study itself, its scope had several different elements. I kind of highlight the main points of those, which was to provide an overview of agriculture in the county, document the importance of agriculture to the county and beyond, and the and beyond is very important here. Document the economic trends, identify factors affecting our profitability and sustainability, pay attention to technology changes that are emerging, improve agriculture's economic sustainability, and very importantly, kind of the bottom line is project the future agricultural land needs for the years 20, 30, 40, and 50. To do this, we had used documentation that's already available, published data, published resources, but also conducted multiple stakeholder interviews, group interviews, as well as conducted some physical economic modeling exercises. So a little bit about sort of the numbers for Miami-Dade County in terms of agriculture over the years. And this chart on the right kind of gives you a perspective of going all the way back to 1959, we had 128,550 acres. By 2017, we were down, almost half to 78,543 acres. And this is using the USDA's Census of Agriculture as the measure for this data. And that really is considered to be the gold standard for data for how much land is in agriculture. Although there is some adjustments to this, particularly if a particular property is being held over for a future year or is being transferred over to a new type of crop. Is that in agriculture or not in agriculture? So for that reason, some of these numbers down to the details may be adjustable or may change a little bit over the years. The county, by the way, does offer an agriculture classification, which is a tax benefit for property owners who have land in agriculture. Now that calculation is 58,606 acres back in 2017. It's about 75% of the total acreage. And the reason for that difference, and this becomes more useful as you start diving a little bit into the numbers, is that the agriculture classified land is the land that actually is in active production, meaning the land that actually is growing rows of crops or actually growing plants. But the property appraiser does not include in this classification things like the driveway, things like the roadways within the farm, things like the farmhouse, things like some of the other things that may not necessarily be active agricultural production. So that's where that difference of about 25% is for the additional peripheral uses of land. Following this trend, though, from 2017, now that I've explained those two numbers, we'll go on to 2021, where we have the agriculture classified number, and it's down from 58,000 to 55,000, 56,000 rounding. And of that, we wanted to look at what's inside the urban development boundary and what's outside. And we had 50,000 outside the urban development boundary. In Miami-Dade County, the urban development boundary plays an important role in maintaining our agricultural land uses. And it's an actual line in our comprehensive plan that defines that development should not happen outside of the boundaries of the urban development boundary. Moving ahead to more current numbers, we're down to about 69,000. Well, we have 69,000 acres in designation in the comprehensive development plan, of which 67,000 are outside of the urban development boundary. And out of that, again, about 70 to 75% of that is designated as agriculture by the property appraiser, or classified as agriculture by the property appraiser. After we published the report, in February this year, the 2022 census of agriculture was released, the new one, and that brings us back around the circle to compare the 2017 number to the more recent number, and we had 68,837 total acres of new data. This number corresponds with the trend line that we had been seeing, but you can see that there's a trend towards less agricultural land. A little bit about the way the agricultural land is designated in the county. This is, on the left, is the map from the U.S. Department of Agriculture showing soils of unique importance. And you can see the yellow land is that land. If you compare that to the map on the right, which is from the future land use plan map, the dark green area is the land that's designated agriculture, and you can see that they almost match. So we designate the better farmland for agriculture in our comprehensive plan. Another thing that's important about, or interesting about, agriculture uniquely in Miami-Dade County is the heavy use of smaller farms. In much of the state, the average farm size is hundreds of acres. And when you go out west in the United States, you see when you fly in a plane, you can see huge farms. In Miami-Dade County, we really have a trend towards much smaller farms, smaller than 10 acres. And they represent 73% of the farm operations in the county. And this number has been trending upward. This percentage has been going higher. We're getting more and more small farms in the county as time goes.
Yes. That's okay. What's going on?
Just that Oscar called and he wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question?
Slides for the staff presentation.
We already put him in.
I said we put him in, but he said it's not updated in his file. Said it's in the all.
Okay, thank you so much. So a little bit about the economics of agriculture in the county. Farm income was about 950 million in 2021, but expenses were very high, 905 million. And what we've found is that the expenses have significantly gone up, largely as a result of COVID-19 and also some of the supply chain problems that other industries have experienced. So that is one thing that we are worried about for the economic outlook for agriculture in the future, is making sure that that doesn't sustain. In terms of employment, currently about 8,900 agricultural workers. That's about a 6.5% increase from 2021. But other industries in the county have increased by a greater percentage. Now, let's remember that we've been losing agricultural land, or it's been reducing, yet we still have been increasing the workforce in agriculture. Also, the value of fixed assets in agriculture has been quite high at 3.25 billion. Other things that are important to agriculture, especially in an urban county such as Miami-Dade County, is how the population and real estate development plays against the land use needs of agriculture. Currently, we're looking at the population projections to see what kind of land needs we are going to have. Currently, the population is about 2.662 million. We've been growing at about 1% a year since the year 2000. Recently, there has been a decline in that growth rate, but we believe that's been sort of a temporary dip. but that we project that we are still going to grow by the year 2050, and we're going to have about 3.3 million in our population. What that means for our density is that overall the county has about 1,422 people. Within our urban development boundary, that's about 6,000 people per square mile. With the projected population growth, we'll get to around 7,000 people per square mile, which is comparable to more urban counties in the United States. We do know, I think everybody in the room and anybody on the Zoom would know that we have a high cost of living, and that's affecting both housing and homeownership costs, both in the Miami-Dade County and throughout South Florida. But we also are looking at the national trend on the loss of farmland and the need to address that. Nationally, even over 11 million acres of farmland have been lost. But Miami-Dade County, among the 10 largest urban counties in the United States, has actually had the lowest loss of farmland. It's lost about 6.2% of its farmland, comparing the prior Census of Agriculture to the 2017 Census of Agriculture. Only Brooklyn, New York gained farmland compared with so only Brooklyn, New York did better than us. I guess a couple of rooftop gardens got added in up there. But most of the other metropolitan counties around the United States have lost significant amounts of farmland, whereas Miami-Dade County has protected a fairly large amount, largely again because we have a very solid urban development boundary in our policies. In terms of agriculture's role in the county and beyond, taking agriculture, the actual farm activity, as well as some of the support activities, we have about 12,000, almost 13,000 full-time and part-time jobs, $1.6 billion of industry output. And GDP contributions have increased from 1998 to 2021. We are the only, or one of the only areas in the United States that can produce winter crops. And we really supply the entire eastern seaboard of the United States with our winter crop production. So if you go to a grocery store in New Jersey and you want to buy some produce in the middle of January, it's probably something that came from Miami-Dade County. Also, let's remember that 89% of the county's agricultural products are shipped out of the region. So agriculture is extremely important, not just locally, but also to the United States. And that's part of the reason why our soils are designated as having a status of unique importance. Other things that are interesting about Miami-Dade County's agriculture industry rankings. We're first in the nation for production of nursery, greenhouse, and floriculture sales. Anytime you go to the garden section of a Home Depot or a Lowe's under that kind of screen roof area, and you see all those plants for sale, if you look closely, you'll notice that a lot of them come from Miami-Dade County. We also are the second in the state in terms of agriculture sales value. We only follow Palm Beach County in terms of the dollar value of agriculture products that are sold. It's interesting, most of the urban counties tend to have a higher dollar value for the products that are grown and sold. We're number one in crop sales value in the nation. I'm sorry, we're in the top 1% in the nation for crop sales value. We're in the top 2% in the nation for agricultural sales value. And we're among the top in the state for production of vegetables, melons, potatoes, sweet potatoes. And we're fifth in the state, interestingly, in sheep, goats, wool, mohair, and aquaculture sales value. We think a lot of that is largely shaped by our aquaculture industry, which is quite strong. Other important trends, production has expanded rapidly, particularly in nursery and floriculture, whereas tropical fruits have also been increasing, but not quite as significantly. But vegetable use has declined. So some of the vegetable farms have been converted over to growing flowers and plants under current economic conditions. Future economic conditions may change and that may switch back around. adaptability is a very common trend in our agriculture industry. Production and investment is expected to continue increasing, and the use intensity of agricultural land is continuing to increase. So we're seeing that people are getting more product and more activity per acre of land, and profitability, while highly volatile, is affected by increasing production costs. Growth is anticipated in various industries, including agriculture. An example is the Atlantic Sapphire facility, which is one of the largest producers of salmon in the United States. Other factors that affect our sustainability: imports. There's a region in Mexico that has almost the same growing climate as we do, and so they are the main competition for the marketplace for the products that grow in Miami-Dade. We are protected. The main reason why the plants in soil come from Miami-Dade County is because they are not allowed to be imported. There are restrictions on importation of soil or plants in soil from outside the United States. We do have to worry about production costs increasing. We also, the agriculture industry is paying great attention to workforce availability, including immigration policies. We always have to be cognizant of weather events. Hurricane Andrew, as we all remember, came right through the agriculture area of Miami-Dade County. And as production has become more intensive, the effects of a hurricane are going to be even greater. Of course, there will need to be mechanisms to address that. Finally, temperature increase over the next few years, really until 2050, may change the climate somewhat. It may make additional counties in Florida truly tropical the way we are, and may create additional areas that will grow crops. But it also will mean that in Miami-Dade County, new types of crops will be able to grow. And lastly, we do have to pay attention to sea level. And if you take a look at the diagram on the right, you can see that the current sea level or groundwater rises are continuing to happen into the future, right? And we project to increase about 3 feet by the year 2050. Other things that are affecting agriculture will be technology. While technology is a useful way for us to be able to produce more per acre, there are some high capital costs for producing the technology to provide these products. So we're not certain that it's going to be a widespread adoption of high technology systems in all of the county. Through this report, we have several recommendations to improve economic sustainability, including to maintain our current CDMP or Comprehensive Plan Urban Development Boundary regulations and the designation of that land that is agricultural as agricultural. Continue to lobby to see better trade policies for farming in this area. Maintain strong support for the agricultural industry, including Charles LaPrade, who's our agricultural manager, the university's agricultural extensions, and various other resources that support and keep the industry strong. And then also coordinate with various agencies that affect our sustainability, including the Corps of Engineers, South Florida Water Management District, and the Department of Environmental Protection, because all of those agencies can assist with maintaining a environment for which agriculture can operate. So the future land use needs, this is an extremely important question for all of us, which is really how much land do we need to maintain a viable industry, meaning how much land do we need for the industry to continue to support, to have some of the support networks, the supply chains that it relies on, that are all also in Miami-Dade County. And our consensus estimate is that we're really going to need to get to about, or be above 64,000 acres in the year 2030, above 60,900 acres in 2040, and above 56,300 acres in 2050. Right now, we are above 64,000 acres based on the last census of agriculture. We're not that far above it. The projections represent the minimum acreage required to meet demand for farmland without compromising viability. And indications are for strong growth in the overall economy and the agricultural sector. We do anticipate that import competition, future loss of farmland, and other environmental factors do reduce the amount of farmland that will be viable, and that's reflected in these numbers that you see here. So the future viability of the agriculture industry in Miami-Dade County really depends on maintaining profitability, securing resources to support the capacity to produce, and enabling the industry to be resilient in adapting to change. Wise policies regarding land use, regulations, labor, and other issues affecting agriculture are critical to meet this need over the next 3 decades and beyond. With that, I really do thank you all for indulging me as I have hopefully kept you all awake through this presentation. And I am happy to take questions, and I know Charles is here as well, and I'm sure he's eager to add some words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dombeck. Actually, I'm a policy wonk, but I thought your presentation was excellent and had no problem staying awake through it. Let me ask you a question, sir. Do you have time to wait? Because what I'd like to do is hear from Mr. LaPrade and then have people ask questions of both of you, because the questions may relate to one of you, the other, you may both want to jump in. I don't know if you have time to wait for Mr. LaPrade's presentation, do you?
Of course, yeah, I always am happy to hear from Charles.
Okay, Senator Garcia, I know that you will have to leave shortly, so I will if you have any questions for Mr. Dombeck, I'll let you go right now. No? Okay, thank you. And if we can hear from Mr. LaPrade and Isabel, would you like to introduce him? Or you already did so, I believe. Yes. Okay, Mr. LaPrade, thank you for being here today, sir. You're recognized. Yes. Is your mic on? Try again.
How about now?
Much better.
Okay. Good morning, Charles LaPrade, Agricultural Manager, Miami-Dade County. And we saw the presentation from Alex. I'm just going to do a little color commentary and then be available for questions. But the significance of agriculture in Miami-Dade County has been a long-standing importance to this country. It is strategic to the food source of the rest of the continental U.S. When we farm down here and much of South Florida, nobody else can in the country other than Southern California. So if you want something fresh between November and April, it's either from South Florida, Southern California, or a foreign entity from offshore. That does a lot of things. It creates a security. It creates cost effectiveness for the folks that live here. And it also reduces those transportation costs and the things that go along with it. On top of that, Alex mentioned some factoids, and just to give you a brief, we are number 2 in the state. Palm Beach is number 1. Palm Beach does about 1.56 billion in sales as of the last census. We do 1.136, 1.135, 1.36. We do that on 68,000 acres. Palm Beach does it on over 400,000 acres. That's the difference of a tropical climate. We produce things that nobody else can, even that far up the road. Because we are tropical, we can produce very high value. A lot of our crops are valued by the square foot, not by the acre. And that's why people on smaller pieces can make a living in those areas. And again, we supply that throughout the country. Our agriculture here is not done on the best dirt, but it is considered unique, as Alex mentioned, because it is able to farm when nobody else can. And that's where that unique designation comes from. So I'll leave it at that and answer any questions that you may have.
I have several, but first, Senator Garcia, do you have any? Okay, let me ask a couple quick questions, and I see former Chair Bailey. Quickly, I saw something in here on agritourism, and I know that there was legislation pending in the legislature this year. I didn't follow it that closely, but I know that it failed. One of the concerns that I have heard in Broward County is that some people are using the phrase agritourism to have, a plot the size of 6 square yards, and just so that they can claim it's agriculture, and then try and run event spaces there in areas that aren't zoned for event spaces. Is that a problem in Dade as well?
We certainly have the same problems everybody else has, sometimes more. That is an item that has been, and it would be good, and I'll send it to Isabel. The Department of Agriculture, Florida Department of Agriculture has written a clarifying memo with regard to what's needed to have and what is understood as agritourism. Agritourism brings in a lot of money. We are a tourist destination, in addition to being a food producer and all of that. So it is important. It brings in some extra money for those growers when things are not very good. One of the things to understand as we track this, when we hit the recession in 07 and 08, and with COVID, we saw numbers on farm direct sales actually increase during those time periods where everybody else was decreasing. So there are benefits there as well, but it has to be, watched.
Next question, you referenced the UDB. I know that it seems based on what we see with requests to develop into the UDB, that seems like it's under pressure every year. Do you have any comments on that as to the importance of protecting the UDB versus the need for affordable housing? Because it seems like the two are always in conflict.
I'll give that one to Alex.
Great question. We look at we do view, and as one of the main findings of the report is the need and the importance of maintaining the urban development boundary. We do realize we do get a lot of requests to expand out of the urban development boundary. There may be times when it's a legitimate request, but there are also oftentimes when it may not be a valid request. It's funny because urban affordable housing is kind of an interest. It's hard to really think of that as sort of as a zero sum. Like you can either have the expansion of the urban development boundary or you can have affordable housing. We really look closely at ways to be able to support development of affordable housing of various types while maintaining the urban development boundary, and that's really been kind of the goal. And there are some very good ways to do that, to maintain affordable housing while also maintaining the viable farmland and the urban development boundary. One of the things I did want to kind of emphasize, I mentioned earlier about the fact that in Miami-Dade County, we've had a lower loss of agricultural land compared with other parts of the United States. A lot of those other parts of the United States, many of them have significant affordable housing problems, just like we do. However, they still are allowing development to keep going outside of their urban development boundary. But the other thing I did want to mention is that part of the reason why we have kept our our farmland loss low is that we are constrained. We have an ocean on one side and we have protected land on the other side. So we don't really have the ability to just kind of willy-nilly just build out forever.
Right.
I would just add one more thing. Another issue that we do face, especially when we talk about the UDB, is much of the land outside the UDB that is farmed is not even owned by the farmer. It's owned by real estate speculators and that type of thing, and leased annually to those growers. So that is also a concern.
Right. There is the famous issue of Hertz Rent-A-Cow, which occurs in frequently in my area, where they'll clear land and then put 3 or 4 cows on it just to get the agricultural exemption for taxes. Last issue, and this is a comment, not a question, I continue, having carefully reviewed your documents, believe that any reasonable, comprehensive immigration plan has to account for more workers, whether or not they're citizens or permanent residents or come into on a temporary basis. We need those workers, not exclusively in agriculture, but including in agriculture. Former Chair Bailey, you're recognized, sir.
Sure. It's funny that you mentioned, Chair Geller, about the people skirting the law. One of the first thing that I lobbied for in Tallahassee when I represented local government, we changed the definition of farm. Before, it used to be if you have one plant, one animal, you consider a farm. And so we changed that like around 2009. My question is for Alex. He mentioned, which surprised me, that we lead the nation with it sheep, goat, and wool. Can he just speak more to that? Because that out of all the stat, that one really kind of threw me. I was surprised to see that one.
I'm so sorry that it wasn't that we lead the nation for sheep, goat, and let me find that stat again. We're actually 5th in the state in sheep, goats, wool, mohair, milk, and aquaculture sales value. And a lot of that tends to come from our aquaculture activity. We have quite a few fish farms in the region. So that's where that comes from. Where we lead the nation overall is in nursery, greenhouse, and floriculture sales. So all of the plants that you see for sale in various Home Depot, Lowe's, or even flower shops, that's a product that we excel, and we are the leaders in the nation in providing that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
It is
Yes, Senator
primarily
Garcia.
I'm just gonna have to take off now, but thank you. And I just want to appreciate both of you for the presentation that you did. And for some of us that may not think this is important, just I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find a happy median of where we can coexist with development and agriculture. And just let's remember what happened during COVID, that everything shut down. And for me, I think it's important for us to preserve ag to a way that we can feed our people, both when I mean our people, South Florida, in the event that we have a catastrophic issue. So this is where I fall, always trying to find that median. I don't believe that we should not have any more development, but it's important to make sure we protect ag as much as possible. So thank you all for that presentation you're doing up there and the work that you're doing to try to preserve some of the ag lands, scarce ag lands that we have.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for being here today. Are there any additional questions? Yes, Councilmember Kaplan.
You prompt me to ask whether oyster cultivation would be suitable for this area?
No.
My friend.
Why?
Temperature.
Yeah, we're
Too hot?
maybe on the north end of the bay, but that has its own issues. The southern end is a national park. So that would not be included there. And then other water areas actually don't front Miami-Dade County, they're Monroe. But the only available water that's not a national park would be this area of the bay up here. And they don't like to grow there too much, but.
Thank you.
During part of my tenure in the Senate, I represented most of the landmass of Collier County, including Immokalee, which is the winter tomato capital of the country, and the 10,000 Islands. And they had a robust aquaculture industry there. As a matter of fact, it was about their only industry. I participated in a parade once. It had like 7 or 8 vehicles and went around 3 times. But I was there, my district. If there are no further questions, thank you, sir. Isabel, there is no action that we are taking on this, correct? It's just a presentation.
Yes, Senator, today it's just a presentation. This will inform our process moving forward as we look to update our strategic regional policy plan. I hope to take that on this year. And so again, we're collecting information on a variety of topics to bring that into that process.
Okay. Mr. Schwartz, can you please elaborate on everything that the SFRPC can do on this. No, just kidding. I told him earlier I was going to ask a question on that, and then I said, and the correct response is that's a very interesting question. I'll have to do some research on it.
That's a very interesting question. I'll have to do some research.
Okay, but please tell Mr. Gorham that we'd like to see what else we can do in this area. All right, if there are no further questions, and our timing is going well, we move on to the Miami-Dade County Flood Response Plan, which those of you who have attended meetings know that the entire CNSFRE study is an issue near and dear to my heart, where I believe the word is a hemorrhoid to the South Florida Water Management District and the Army Corps of Engineers, where I continue to vociferously complain about the imminent flooding and the fact that we're all going to be underwater in approximately 12 years every time it rains. Isabel, would you care to introduce our two speakers?
Yes, Senator, thank you. It's my pleasure. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Pete Gomez. He's the director of the Miami-Dade County Department of Emergency Management. He is a highly motivated fire service professional with a current specialty in the field of emergency management. The Emergency Management Department serves more than 2.8 million county residents and disaster preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation needs. Mr. Gomez brings a very well-rounded perspective and wealth of experience to the department. He has about 35 years of experience in every aspect of the fire department. Excuse me, did I read that correctly? Yes, the fire service. He joined the public sector as a police officer in the city of Hialeah in 1983, and he worked there until 1985. He then joined the Miami Fire Department. He's been proactive in many of the special response areas that the council works in, also through our emergency management work. And the dive team, hazard material teams, urban search and rescue team. That's good to know. If I ever get lost, I'm going to come find you if I ever lose anybody. So he was also the administrator of the Department of Homeland Security Urban Area Security Initiative, and which brings millions of dollars into the South Florida region for Homeland Security. He's a member of the State of Florida Domestic Oversight Council and Executive Board, co-chair of the Special Response Teams Coordinating Group, and belongs to the Regional Domestic Security Task Force. And he was one of the founding committee members of the City of Miami Sea Level Rise Committee. Again, I apologize that these bios are not in your package. I'm not sure where it ended up, but I will make sure that you receive them all so you can look. In any case,
They were emailed to us a couple hours ago.
okay, perfect. So Mr. Gomez is, as you will see, is just extraordinary in terms of his experience and qualifications. He's joined here today with by Dr. Jesse Spiro, who is the Emergency Management Administrator and Public Safety Professional. And with the Department of Emergency Management, he is the Deputy Executive, excuse me, I'm getting his correct title, Assistant Director of the Miami-Dade County Department of Emergency Management. He was appointed in 2022 Assistant Director at Miami-Dade County DEM. He oversees the newly created Prevention and Protection Directorate. He is responsible for the preparedness and resiliency efforts of Miami-Dade County, and he's also an adjunct professor at several institutions, including FIU and Georgetown University. He's been a public safety practitioner for more than 20 years, having worked in the private sector and at all levels of government, including federal, tribal, state, county, and municipal. And again, he's co-author of over 50 emergency management plans and publications. So it's with great pleasure. He has, again, many more qualifications and experience, but we're very happy to bring him here today. And thank you, gentlemen. I know that driving from whence you came was a challenge. So thank you.
We're used to that.
And before you start, Isabel, are they doing both the Miami-Dade County Flood Response Plan and the flood control for the Army Corps, the canals, or one or
So,
both?
thank you, Senator. what you're gonna see, I believe, is that there's gonna be a little bit of overlap. And that these topics will come together, but we're fortunate to have here, Marina Blanco. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Pap or Pape. But anyway, Marina is here. I know how to say Marina. Marina's here from the Department of Emergency, the Environmental Resources Management Department, all my departments. And she specifically is here to have that quick conversation with us on what Miami-Dade County is doing in response to the letter we sent after our
Okay.
January meeting.
So these two gentlemen are here primarily on the flood response,
Correct,
not the Army Corps issue.
correct.
Great.
But I
Oh,
think there'll be,
although it may
there might
touch on
be
that,
an
of course.
over.
All right.
Let her deal with that.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Isabel, thank you for inviting us, board members. Thank you for having us here and speak a little bit about the flood response plan. As you can see, as you have seen in South Florida lately, in particular Miami-Dade County and Broward County, we no longer have hurricane seasons, right? Our hurricane season goes from January 1st to December 31st. In April of last year, we saw the rain bomb and the damage that it caused in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. And shortly thereafter, we've had our own issues with floodwaters coming in from these quote unquote rain bombs. So these rain bombs are bringing tropical storm type weather conditions to the South Florida area. I don't think I have to explain to this group the importance of staying on top of these climate changes. We see it every day. The hurricanes are getting stronger. They're coming ashore a lot faster. They're more powerful, and we're having to adapt to these type of conditions. Mayor Levine Cava had a big concern after those rain bombs, and it was because of our response to those events and the preparedness to these events wasn't a well-coordinated effort. So she reached out to us wanting for us to put together a plan where we would coordinate with our stormwater guru queen, Marina, the South Florida Water Management District, with the Army Corps Engineer, but the 34 other cities that incorporate Miami-Dade County. And we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page in our preparedness and our response to future flooding. So we took the approach that we wanted to do a very comprehensive process where we included all of the stakeholders. You name the entity and we included them, from non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations, all the municipalities. We included elected officials. We included every community that you can think of to make sure they were all represented. They had a voice, and we were able to incorporate all their concerns into our response plan. We know that these events are going to continue to be coming, and we wanted to make sure that we got everybody on board. And when we say the 34 municipalities, not every municipality has a storm water responsibility, but the ones that do, we wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. And when I say on the same page, we're talking about preparedness, right? A lot of these storm water systems need to be maintained on a regular basis. When we're anticipating rains, we want to make sure we get out there and we clean the streets, clean the drainage systems so that it doesn't impact and have any negative flooding effect. So that's a high level overview of how the plan came to fruition. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Spiro. Dr. Spiro will speak to all the agencies, everybody that was involved. As a matter of fact, I took out this page from it, and you can see that it's a pretty comprehensive list of people that were involved, and we had multiple meetings. So everybody had an opportunity to have input, including Marina and her group, who are really the subject matter experts when it comes to flooding in Miami-Dade County. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Spear, and I'll stay here for any questions you might have.
Pete, you
Thank you,
said
sir.
everything I was going to say, so that's about it. If you can bring the slides back up real quick, there's a couple more highlights I want to identify. So as Director Gomez indicated, it was a very comprehensive whole community approach to how we approach the flooding issues here in Miami-Dade County. So it included all of our partners across Miami-Dade County, as well as our regional partners from South Florida Water Management District. We also had a representative from FEMA that was embedded with us for 6 months. That is a floodplain manager. He was a liaison to us in this process and was very helpful. So our oversight committee is made up of our high-level strategic aspects and goals we want to accomplish with this plan. And then our whole working group included everything from our community-based organizations to those that represent migrant farm workers and then their needs post-disaster. So the overall intent of this plan was to ensure that we could have their complete buy-in and support in a coordinated operational response to flooding events. Next slide. So the priorities was to really better understand the flooding that we see here in Miami-Dade County. And it's actually the same thing that we experience all throughout Southeast Florida, whether it's in Miami-Dade, Palm Beach County, or Broward County, or the Keys, we experience these flooding events pretty similarly. So we wanted to align a lot of our assumptions and our capabilities, in particular when it came to our GIS mapping capabilities. There's a lot of resources that are out there that we didn't know that we had access to for getting information related to where we can anticipate the most amount of floodwaters during rate events, where we can see areas of those communities that are lower income or socioeconomically disadvantaged. How can we coordinate and support those communities a little bit better? And then it got a lot of great input, in particular from our municipal partners that have a big role in this process for us as well. A couple of the major takeaways from this was the need for an ongoing coordinated preparedness year-round with all of the partners. So we approached it like we would a hurricane, because this is one of what Maracaba calls our trifecta of hazards that we face, which is heat, hurricanes, and now flooding. So we approach it the same method. And with that, with our coordinated work with our partners, we can identify what their capabilities and resources are, which makes us better prepared and more resilient to respond in the future. With that, we also identify the need for a really aggressive public outreach campaign in the future. There is very limited as far as traditional emergency management communication goes for flood hazards, besides turn around, don't drown, and a few others. So what we want to do is we want to try to have more outreach that identifies the flood hazards and what the community can do, including business owners as well that can be impacted from floodwaters. And then lastly, the big takeaway from this was that we needed to do a better job of training on floods and exercising on floods as well. So a few weeks ago, we had our first ever flood response exercise that we conducted with FEMA. We had a number of our partners participate in what's known as a virtual tabletop series through the Emergency Management Institute. And this was the first time we've done that. So we identified that we're going to be doing ongoing outreach and communication with our partners throughout the entire year ahead of the flood season, as well as doing an annual tabletop partners with all of those agencies. So these are just some pictures and images which are pretty relevant and germane to the communication here. So this rain bomb that occurred in Broward County is something that we could have experienced just as normal as they did. We could have experienced that down here in Miami-Dade County as well. Next slide. These are just some of the images that if we overlay some of the context and what we can experience here at MIA or downtown Brickell or across the entire area here, that there's some challenges that we have to deal with. And with that, we also have the challenges with our transportation, all the funds and opportunities that our airports and ports provide for the economics down here is very important. When you close down an airport, you close down a port, it costs a lot of dollars and jobs potentially. Last slide here, I believe, is the impact to Port Everglades, and the fuel that was going out was a big challenge that we saw down here as well. We actually had staff members that actually couldn't find fuel, and it was difficult for them to get to work, and we work in emergency management. So if that's a challenge for us, what about those individuals that they work 2 or 3 jobs and they have to drive to all these areas across the entire region to have these opportunities to work? And if they can't get gas, they can't get transportation, it's very hard on their families. So our plan was really to address some of these challenges, know about them a little bit better, and how we can better approach this moving forward in the future. So thank you.
Are we hearing from them now, or are we hearing from Marina first?
No, I think we should take questions on the program.
Okay, former Chair Bailey.
I would say thank you for your presentation and all the work that you've been doing over the course of getting the plan together. I looked through the your list of members. I know you say you're going to have some more stuff in the future. I wanted to just recommend maybe considering the Miami-Dade League of City as a group to add. And also you say you're going to work with business owners to help them plan for it. And so maybe a couple chamber organizations like the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. We have a planner within the organization that deals with all the cities. But I agree that the League of Cities should be included because it's a higher level group that can have some important input into our plans.
Thank you.
And when we have events, right, for hurricanes or anything like that, the mayor does have calls with the League of Cities.
Okay, and gentlemen, will somewhat overlap with our next speaker, but I'm doing it this way just to show I can do this with my eyes closed. One of the major issues we have is that all of Dade and Broward, or almost all of Dade and Broward, west of US 1, which is built on the coastal ridge, I'm opening my eyes, used to be Everglades. And the reason they're not is the Army Corps of Engineers built these giant canals. And then the little canals that feed into the giant canals, which feed into some body of water, whether it's Biscayne Bay, whether it's the Intracoastal, etc. And that worked fine as long as inland water was here and ocean water is here, but I don't need to tell you what's happening with ocean level rise, sea level rise. So we're expecting in approximately 12 years, they'll be like this. And every time we get a significant amount of rain, it will be like it was directly outside my window in April. They kept showing pictures of cars stuck that was directly outside my office building where my law office is. And I have continued saying, I want to hear what Marina has to say about this, if you'll call up her bio. So I didn't want to refer to you by just your first name, but it's the only one I remembered. Okay. Okay. If Miss Blanco Pape will also, or Blanco Pape, I don't know which,
Take your pick. I'm fine. I'm
sorry?
fine with either way.
Okay. Would be speaking. The fact is that our climate here is in Dade and Broward, depending on whether you're inland or coastal, is either tropical rainforest or tropical monsoon. Either way, it means it rains a lot. And in about 12 years, when it rains, there will be nowhere for the water to go, and we will be underwater. I joke about houseboats and arcs so much that Miss Cosio Carballo recently brought me my very own ark, told me that big, but it looks very cute. Because I keep talking about houseboats and arcs, because we will be underwater every time it rains. And I keep telling people, bring your pets in at night, or the alligators will eat them. So I hope that y'all have been consulting with Miss Blanco Pape, because I don't know, I no longer think there is an answer that will avoid flooding. I've been running around yelling, screaming as the most visible proponent in Southeast Florida of this for the last 5 years. The Army Corps told me 5 years ago that if everything went well, if they didn't run into any problems, after they got their authorization and fully funded, they hope they can fix this in 15 years, which means 20 or 25, but they don't have their funding yet. They don't have their authorization yet. And we're only 12 years, give or take, from not being able to drain. So, as you know, Ms. Blanco Pape, we have discussed seeing if we could get some of this started by trying to come up with local money from Dade and Broward. I know there are 23 there are 23 canals, major canals in Dade and Broward. And let's see, of the,
Yes.
right. Right, of those, it is, I wrote down the number, okay. Well, somewhere it's, I believe, 16 in Dade, 3 in Broward, but that's not really true because we share one. So it's 15 in Dade, 6 in Broward, plus the one that we share. Do you have any idea what we can do so that we're not underwater every time it rains, since we're unable to flood? And that was really to the other two gentlemen, but it's really to you. So if you'll introduce her, and then if
So thank you.
collectively the three of you can respond.
Thank you. It's my great pleasure to introduce Marina again, another super helpful person. She's been great. So Marina works with the Division of Environmental Resources Management at the Miami-Dade County Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources, we call DERM. She is an FDP qualified stormwater management inspector and has a Bachelor of Architecture and a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, both from the University of Miami. She is a licensed professional engineer and a stormwater erosion sedimentation control inspector in the state of Florida. She has more than 38 years of experience in professional engineering practice and senior management. And her experience includes success and leadership positions in an engineering architectural consulting firm, utility company, electric, governmental utility agency working with water, wastewater, and stormwater, transit agency, and as faculty in 2 universities. She's really smart. So she has extensive experience in industrial, commercial, and residential design, mechanical and civil engineering, architectural, construction management, grants and contract administration, and the list goes on and on. She has extensive professional experience negotiating and reporting to regulatory agencies such as the US EPA, FEMA, USDA, NRCS, Army Corps of Engineers, Federal Transit Administration, FEP, the Water Management District, and FDOT. She has managed large engineering programs, including, well, it's a long list. So, but she has familiarity, ample knowledge about dredging issues, beach renourishment programs, stormwater master planning, stormwater utilities, national pollutant discharge elimination, these programs. So, and again, the list goes on and on. So with that, Chair Geller.
Thank you, Ms. Pape. Blanco Pape, we appreciate your being here today, ma'am. You're recognized.
Okay, thank you very much.
Give me some good news, please. I need some.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, I love your enthusiasm. And if nothing else, I'm an engineer, I'm a licensed engineer. So there are a lot of things that we can do moving forward to be able to manage some of the changes that have occurred and will continue to occur in our area to make sure that living in this area is sustainable and and that we build resilience in the system that we have to be able to handle different hydrologic conditions. So directly to the topic at hand, we have been working very closely with the district for many years. We were partners in crime.
The district is South Florida
Armando
Water
will
Management
attest to
District.
it, and our emergency management representatives here as well. And we have also been partners in crime and continue to be that way when it comes to analyzing, modeling, doing the engineering for the stormwater management system. As we also are with FEMA, we are technical cooperating partners with FEMA, so we do share all of our engineering analysis and models and recommendations with FEMA as well. And they use that information for the FEMA maps, et cetera. So regarding the particular study from the Corps/district, we have been actively involved with the district in looking at how can we comprehensively analyze, update, prepare, whatever it is we need to prepare so that the Corps can then authorize the project, a long-term project, and be able to implement improvements, the district and the core moving forward. And of course, the very important aspect of it is funding, and how does that get funded, and, what assistance we can get moving forward from the federal government as well as the state and local government. So we are very much involved in that. Something I can tell you right now is that there are a lot of balls in the air right now, a lot of moving parts. And I think that things will be, there's a lot of unknowns at this point, but we have a lot of things going. And so I'm prepared to share some of those with you today. And we don't have all the answers, but we'll find them. That's what engineering is all about. So anyways, and I'm proud of that. I'm used to working through problems. We have, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned we essentially have 16 tidal control structures in the county, 3 of which have had studies by the district now to what the district calls a phase 2 advancement. And that's great news. The current study by the Corps/district plans to take on 2 more tidal control structures for Miami-Dade County. There is also a couple for Broward County. So as far as Miami-Dade County, that leaves about 11 structures that remain to be tackled. The district has done a phase 1 analysis for those structures. The Corps has studied them in previous studies, but they remain to be moved on beyond that phase 1 at this point. The district has for 3 years or more has been actively looking at grants, and we have actually partnered with the district, the county has, in applying for those grants, and have been very successful in the last couple of years. There's been 2 awards of FEMA BRIC grants for the C7 and the C8 basins in Miami-Dade County, and those are among the most critical basins in terms of priorities. And those grants involved design and construction funding, so it's very, very, very important. One of the things that we're experiencing, and the district is frustrated, and so are we, is that the grants have been awarded, but the funding agreements are very slow to come. So they've been very delayed. And what that does is that these grants will typically have some local match. The district has a match, we have a match. And while we're sitting waiting, obviously we cannot advance what needs to be advanced in terms of design and going to construction, but it also puts potentially in jeopardy some of those local matches that have been identified. Let's say in the case of the district, it puts in jeopardy some of the match that could be used for design. And it's a catch-22 because you say, well, if I'm going to lose those funds, maybe I can start design. Well, if you start design ahead of the funding agreements being executed, then that's not eligible, as part of the grant. So it is not a good situation to be in. And I know the district is actively pursuing, and we're helping as well on our end to meet with both FEMA and Region 4, as well as DEM, to be able to see where we're at. Is there anything that we can do to move those funding agreements forward? In terms of the vulnerability, if you will, of the 16 structures, the picture that we have so far, and again, there's been, some analysis for protection level of service analysis by the district, and the Corps has had previous studies as well. So that vulnerability really puts the greatest priority in about 6 basins for Miami-Dade County. And I say the higher priority or vulnerability because the risk of failure is in the shorter term rather than the longer term, right? So we're talking failures that could be anywhere within the next 40 years, maybe 50 years in some cases. And that may sound like a long time. However, for something like that gets to fail at that point, we really do need to start way before that point, and that happens, right? So those are the highest basins. The district is, there's basins that I've talked about and where grants have been awarded, et cetera, are among those basins that are the highest priority basins. And the district, and we're in conversations already with them, the C7, C8, C9, C6. So we're moving down the line in the county. So that's a bit of good news, if you will, in that sense. The rest of the structures have the potential for failure that starts a little further down the line. Maybe it's in 30 years, maybe it's 25 years. Some of them could be up to 100 years. And of course, you got to realize that the range comes in because it depends on what forecasts of sea level rise you actually use to then calculate and estimate what the vulnerabilities are. Regardless of that, looking at all the structures, having a first look like the district has, which is a phase 1 study, and making sure that we're not dilly-dallying with what we need to do in terms of funding, analysis, design, and construction. It is very important, since this is a key piece of infrastructure, if you will, in the stormwater management system countywide. Now, I want to talk about a little bit more, and hopefully this addresses the chairman's some fears, in that for Miami-Dade County, we have been, we've had a stormwater utility. We've been modeling the county-wide system for many years, actually, since the mid-90s in a formal way. And in late 2021, we completed an overhaul of all of our models, hydraulic and hydrologic models, countywide. And not only did we look at storm events and frequencies and duration, but we also looked at different scenarios. Current scenario, 2040, 2060, 2080, and 2100. That comes in some of your, what you're fearing in terms of what is the sea level rise and how can we prepare ourselves. And in doing so, we've done a number of things. So with those results, we've done a number of things. Number one, we have updated all of our capital improvement plan. So we have identified close to $500 million in improvement, that's in today's dollars, to be implemented over the next 20, 30 years. And about 80% of that is really improvements into the secondary canal system. The county has two major responsibilities when it comes to stormwater management. We manage the secondary canal system. The secondary canal system is a regional conveyance system. They're tributaries to the primary canals, those are the ones that are managed and operated by the district, and work very closely with the primary canal system, right? They make it or break it, just as much as anything else. And then the county also has responsibility of tertiary systems. Those are local drainage systems that are within unincorporated areas of Miami-Dade County, or that provide benefit and protection for county maintained roads within municipal boundaries. So that's sort of the breakdown of the county responsibility. So with the updates to the stormwater master plan, with all these various scenarios that we looked at, another outcome of that is that we recommended and got adopted an improved level of service for the secondary canal system in Miami-Dade County. And that was approved by the Board of County Commissioners in October of 2022. And what that improvement brings is that we went from a 10-year, one-day protection for storage and conveyance to a 25-year, three-day protection in a 2060 scenario, right? So it's a major improvement in the level of service of the secondary canals. But I want to point out that our secondary canal system is open tributary to the primary. So when you look at the overall basin protection, you look at the primary system and infrastructure that protects the basin, the secondary canal system and any improvements that we may bring are definitely an integral part of the successful handling of that basin, right? So the other thing that we've done is we said, okay, we can do this in 30 years, or we can start some of it now. And so we have gone ahead and applied also for a number of grants, have been successful in doing that. And they're usually about 50-50 match. And we currently have over $32 million that is under procurement at this point for construction contracts that will be completed by 2026 to upgrade all of the C7 secondary canals to this new level of service for 2060, as well as about half of the secondary canals in the C8 basin as well. So that's under procurement right now. We're moving forward and we're not stopping there. We continue to then go down to, we have C9 that is being put together right now, and then we'll continue C6, C4, and so on to the south. And we're tackling that in the order of priority that we have gathered from the results of our modeling. And those priorities essentially match what the Corps and the district actually see. I mean, we have some small differences here or there, but generally speaking, they're about the same level of priority. So when we implement that, that's definitely something that will bring a lot of benefit to the primary system and what the primary system needs to do, or what needs to be done can be phased in, et cetera, into the future. There is another bit of good news in that the district has, for the next fiscal year, been approved $150 million in funding. And as we speak, the district is really looking at and discussing what of that $150 million may or could be used towards design or towards, advancing any of this needs that, we all understand are comprehensive and need to be looked at. So we don't know. Maybe it'd be 30, maybe it'd be 40 million. We don't know. The district is under discussions right now, but that opens another opportunity for additional funding to advance some of these other designs, et cetera, for some of the other basins. And we have also been discussing with the district how, we think, and as we, there are a lot of things, like I said, moving parts and ongoing activities. So that we think that as we wait, or not wait, but we await clarity in some of these different avenues, that we should also be looking at a realistic plan. What would be a realistic plan if there needs to be one, where we can look at vulnerability, we can look at risk, we can look at time frame for those failures to perhaps occur, and try to come up with a more phased approach. And I'm not sure where we're going to get there, but that's where we're under discussions right now as we do. And I know Carolina is out on leave this week, but Carolina and I have had many, many discussions and more to come. Is there a possibility? Is there an option for us to look at, what can be phased in? Mind you that we can advance analysis, we can advance design for something that may be implemented 30 years from now. And I can tell you, being an engineer, and I don't care to repeat for how many years, but anyways, I can tell you that between now and then, if you do something now, it's probably going to have to be redone several times over, right? Why? Because those forecasts may or may not materialize. They may be less, they may be more. There's a million different reasons why. So taking a phased approach, or at least in our minds, to be able to have something we've thought through that process is also important. And because the county is already investing, a significant amount of resources into this as well. And again, the conditions that we have in Miami-Dade County may be different from conditions elsewhere. So that's not necessarily the case everywhere else. So with that, I think that there's a couple of dates that I wanted to also mention to you. And that is in terms of the study itself. That study is the Future Without Project simulations are being completed right now. So we're thinking that perhaps in the middle of April, we could have a presentation with those results of the Future Without Modeling, and maybe sometime in May, we would get to hear and participate in the discussions as to how is the economic analysis following up on those Future Without Project simulations. And again, I don't have any specific answers for you, Mr. Chairman, I applaud your enthusiasm. And I think what I can tell you is that we're working hard and definitely in coordination with the district and the Corps. And we had some conversations actually with the Corps last week about that as well. They were here for other reasons, but we did bring that up as well. And you know, what we think is needed for us here to have a well-coordinated effort and hopefully no drown in the next 12 years. And with that, if you have any questions, then thank you.
Thank you. I spoke to the Corps last week also, so,
Yes.
oh, they know me well. I will just add that sometimes Chicken Little may be correct, that either the sky is falling or in this case, the water actually is rising.
Right.
Secretary Murray, did you have any comments that you wanted to make before we get into questions? No? All right. Let me, ma'am, say quick comment, or actually two, and then I'll open it up. The SFRPC strongly requested that this year the South Florida Water Management District not reduce their millage as they have in all prior years. And actually that's what they did, because we were begging them to try and build up their resources, because they are going to need it. If nothing else, for matching funds for federal grants.
I agree.
And secondly, the concern that I have is, again, 5 years ago, the Army Corps said give or take 2.6 billion. And they were ballparking 100 million for each of the pumps and salinity control barriers. Recently, they've raised that to around 4. That's just on inflation. But the concern that I have is that that amount does not include, because I've asked and they've told me, does not include, and nor do any of their studies include either berms or seawalls along the major canals, nor do they include the secondary canals. So the secondary canals, if the water in the primary canals is higher, they're going to need pumps to get from the secondary canals into the primary canals, which they are not including in their study, nor have they included the cost of seawalls and berms. Because if you're pumping from the west to the east, and they have now these giant pumps, even with much higher salinity control barriers, it'll just flood out all along the canal banks unless they build up berms or seawalls along the canals. And in regards to my question or response, they've specifically told me that is not in any of their plans. So,
And to that point,
Yeah.
when I talked about the county's plan for, upgrading the conveyance system of secondary canals to a higher storage and conveyance capability, that also, by the way, gives a lot of detention capability to the primary canal, is precisely that. Is actually we have identified, we have over 200 miles of secondary canals countywide. We have identified through the entire network of canals, secondary canals, which areas is the bank low enough to not meet that higher level for storage capability. And the upgrade or improvements of the secondary canal for storage is precisely that, is going in all the secondary canals and fixing or elevating the canal banks so that that storage capability or detention capability, if you will, from the primary canal can happen. And
so
what I
I
can tell you
understand.
is that as the district moves on into design and resolving some of the issues or doing the engineering to resolve issues in the primary canal, they too are doing that as well. So that is a key integral part of the improvements. Yes.
When you said that they're looking at the in the primary canals, are you also talking about increasing the height or?
What the district is looking at as they develop the improvements in the primary system, yes.
Okay, because the Army Corps, I've asked them that at least every
Because you
6
had to come
months.
to the right people.
And they've told
That's
me
it.
that they don't have plans for that. But what is encouraging that you've told me is, and I had not thought of that you could use the secondary canals for storage, providing that there's sufficient pumps between the primary and the secondary canals.
Actually, a lot of the storage capability in the secondary canal, which becomes detention capability for
Right.
the primary canal, is not necessarily going to involve any pumping. You know, we may have some conditions where it does, it doesn't, because as long as you can detain the flow and you can hold it in place by elevating canal banks, once the primary system, you know, it's all depending on the storm, and during the storm event, once the levels haven't started to go down, then so go the levels from the secondary canal. So there's really no need, generally speaking. There may be 1 or 2 locations where that will be necessary, but generally speaking, it's not going to require pumping from the secondary into the primary.
Well, I was thinking, and this will be my last, because I have to let other people talk, that as sea level rises, if you don't have the secondary canal sealed off, then once, or if they, depending on where the salinity control barriers are, of course, that once they, as sea level rises, it will start to bring salt water into the primary canals and then into the secondary canals if they're not sealed off.
What you're
If they
describing.
are waterward
Right.
of the salinity control barriers.
What you're describing is behavior that typically happens in the coastal areas, where you have areas that are very close to the shoreline. Then that's where you have the direct effect from the tidal elevation and water migrating to the west. As you get further inland and as you get west of the salinity control structures, that doesn't happen. It's not like, and you may have heard this term, it's not like a bathtub, you know, that you start and everything rises. It doesn't happen that way, thankfully, and for us, right? And there's a number of things that you can do from an engineering point of view with infrastructure to, you know, alleviate where some of those issues happen. And a lot of that actually falls in the ability to retain and storage and detain flows. In fact, we do that now. Armando can tell you there is a large emergency detention area in the C4 right of Tamiami trail, and that's been a godsend. I mean, we've the district has operated that actively during a storm event since 2012. I think was the first time that was needed, and it allows us to, during a storm event, when levels get up high enough, then what we're doing is a lot of the flows that are coming out west from the county, inland and to the west of the county, actually don't flow east. They flow west. And the water is stored in that detention area, and that detention area through seepage or just overflowing once the primary canal levels go down, empties itself. So that's the same concept. It's very effective.
Very good. I have more, but I'm not going to. Are there any additional questions or comments? Any additional questions and comments? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank
you. And
Just, it occurs to
wait,
me,
come back.
I'm trying to develop a mental image of where all this water goes ultimately. Does it just ultimately go out to the bay?
If you want to create the image, right? Some of it eventually goes to the bay, more directly than in other situations, because what happens is any water that is retained or any water that is detained, if it's detained, you know, in the areas where it's being detained, you're going to have some natural seepage into the groundwater. Not a bad thing. Some of it would directly go back into the system and eventually out to the bay. If the water is retained, that means it's only going to be dissipated by evaporation or seepage into the ground. So all of those things are working together, you know, to be able to get rid of the water, and also realize that when we have conditions like that we have large volumes of water that need to be taken care of so that we avoid flooding or mitigate flood damage. That really happens with major rain events. I mean, the system in general, the drainage in general, the elevations that are of the built environment already have in them the ability to handle most of the common rain events. Your 5-year, your 10-year rain event, right? That's your run of the mill, 1 year, 2 year, sometimes we have rain and I'll tell these guys, this is like a 1 year rain event, 2 year rain event. Don't worry, right? We're sending inspectors, we're talking to people because it's raining and people get, obviously worried, but no, the system is generally built for that. That's how we build the built environment can handle that. So what you have is you have your 25-year, your 50-year, your 100-year, or your 1,000-year storm event. That's when we really have to worry about it. And there's other techniques that need to be used to be able to dissipate the water.
When you're modeling, are you looking to be less reliant on seepage? Alex earlier made the point about rising groundwater.
We are not looking to be less reliant. We're relying on every and all possible strategies to get rid of the water. Now, we do have some areas of the county, they're called the cut and fill basins, that this has been adopted back in the 80s, where, and it's out usually out west, where we have there's a retention requirement of all the anything that is going to be constructed to the 100-year storm event. So those the areas around the road, and you have them all the way to the north, that have lakes. They have ponds, they have lakes. They're not communicated with anything, so they rely on evaporation and seepage only, right? And so we're also working on the county on upgrading some of our regulations right now, looking at a higher standard for retention for all lots, regardless of size. And then, with that, we often worry about the water quantity part of the equation, obviously, and that has a major impact when there's flooding. But we also are cognizant of the fact that we have to control the water quality. So with that regulation, we're also looking at, if you want more direct discharges we're looking at a higher retention requirement as well. So there's a lot of things that you can play, but generally speaking, we don't really shy away from using any and all the strategies available.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? If not, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we are reverting back to, we have completed our presentations.
Yeah.
We are reverting back to our agenda, and we will move to adopt our financials, which are where?
All right.
There, 4B. So,
If I could.
Yes.
So, Sean, I believe we still have a quorum, but I'm not sure if we have to go to executive. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great presentation. I don't.
The in-person forum here.
Before the third, well, they all join in. So, okay, we're good. So we can just move ahead with
Okay.
them. Great. Thank you.
Okay, Leo, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, really interesting. I'm delighted to get to know all this stuff. The finance world, we don't see that much fun. So if we go to page 1 of our financials, we'll see that we have our balance sheet. The general fund decreased its assets in $112,195, as well as liabilities and fund balance. The federal, state, and local fund decreased its assets in $53,323, as well as liabilities and fund balance. Revolving loan funds increased its assets in $4,431, as well as the liabilities and fund balance, as the Prosperity Institute increased its assets in $134, as well as liabilities and fund balance. Now's the fun part, page 2. We go to the revenues and expense report. At 41.67% of the fiscal year lapsed, you'll see that we're at 65% of total revenues. That corresponds to the collection of our dues mainly. And we're at 38% of our total expenses. So we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the financials? Commissioner Udine, are you still on? I always check with him.
Thank you very much.
Nope. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, is there a motion to approve the financials?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Kaplan, Councilmember Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Ross. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, or those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show the financials unanimously approved. I believe we are on council member report. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, the loan fund status report.
Well, because Mr. Tart is not here today, we're going to hear at the next meeting on those. Okay, council member reports. I've completed mine. Isabella's completed hers, or executive director. Are there any council member reports? Seeing none, ex officio reports. Who are the ex officios I should be calling on?
Well, we have Jack Wynn from the Florida, and he's there. I see Jack, Florida Department of Transportation. He's online.
Okay, Mr. Nguyen, did you have any report? I see you're not on mute anymore.
Yes,
So.
good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to report on the Transportation Planning Exchange that's going to begin. That's the exchange that's happening in 2024, which will begin on May 7th through the 9th in St. Petersburg. So it's going to be held jointly with the Florida Puerto Rico chapter of the ITE. So if there's interest in that, I can forward the information to you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Nguyen? None. Thank you, Deb. Let's see. It's Cyrena Davila and John Moore from DEP. Anything? Seeing nothing.
Oh, yes.
Armando Villaboy from South Florida Water Management District.
Thank you. Just wanted to second what Marina said up there with the 150 million. We did receive 150 million for the state from the state. That is for infrastructure upgrades and operations. So we'll take a look at some of those structures. We're not sure exactly how much of that will go to planning for those structures, but we are. Aside from that, I have not heard anything on the Regional Planning Council, that 18 million that was out there. We had it back and forth. It seems to have no discussion, no final discussion at this point. So we're still looking at that for you. And just lastly, wanted to bring up that is something that Marina also brought up, that C4 detention basin. That canal, as a matter of fact, actually got funding from FEMA for raising those canal banks to 8 feet NGVD. So that whole canal bank is uniform. Not only does it help with retention, but also with emergency management. Just so you know how much water you have, how much water you can hold, and our water managers have a uniform view of water and how much more that canal can take over time. So just want to point that out.
I think that's excellent. I hope the rest of the canals will get the same treatment, but I find that unlikely. And apparently, from what I heard, there's a difference in Dade from Broward. It sounds like the Dade salinity control barriers are much closer to the ocean than they are up in Broward.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Miami-Dade County is closer to the coast, and also there is direct communication. So Miami-Dade County actually manages all the whole secondary system, so the communication is faster in that respect.
Okay, because I know in Broward, some of that water goes directly into the Everglades, not into the ocean. So finally, let's see, our new ex officio, Kent Walia from FDOT District 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be serving as an ex officio for this board meeting today. Don't really have any updates for District 4, but there is one item. We are wrapping up a corridor study for State Road A1A in Broward County. And that's something that once we wrap that up, we can share a link to that report with the SFRPC.
Okay, and you're not closing off any more lanes of traffic there, are you? I think it's down to one each way right now.
Nope, just a lot of just solutions that the locals and the MPOs can consider moving forward. We touch on resiliency items too as well.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there,
Upcoming meeting.
we have upcoming meetings on Monday, April 15th, 2024, and Monday, May 20th, both in Hollywood. Is there anything else? Yes.
Mr.
Former
Chair.
Chair Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple years ago, when we went down to Monroe County, we got a tour about a group, what they were doing regarding the reefs. There's a recent report saying that because of the water so much warmer this year, they're not able to plant, not this specific group, but I would like to get some type of update to kind of see at one of our future meetings.
We had an update on the reefs at our joint meeting on Friday. So we'll get you, Isabel, if you can get to former Chair Bailey,
Thank
the
you.
report from Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else to come in front of us?
Can I just say one
Of
thing?
course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to mention, for those of you who remember, that the regional planning councils working in partnership with our counties and DEP, we as a regional council, South Florida and Treasure Coast, we actually have a joint work group on the Florida Coral Reef. And we are starting to meet again. We expect to have an afternoon workshop on April 15th with DEP for our county representatives. Hannah from Monroe County in particular. So you will be hearing more. And it's just, there's been a lot going on, and this is our opportunity to get back in. And DEP is looking forward to working with us on these issues. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anything else? Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Bailey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Show us adjourned.